Good day, good evening, good morning. This is my instructional video on how to varnish a painting, according to me, Pete Addison. That is just according to me. This is how I do it. I will not accept any responsibility if you take my advice and it doesn't work out for you. But if you do take my advice, I assume it should work out for you. Let's start off with the ingredients that you're going to need. All right, here are the ingredients that I will be using today. Number one, I like to use aluminum foil. I like to place a strip of aluminum foil inside this prefabricated aluminum foil dish that I just bought at the grocery store, I believe. You need something to apply the varnish with. I prefer these foam brushes over a real brush. From my experience, I don't know, one time I had a real brush leave a streak. That was one time, but it was enough for me to change forevermore, so this has always treated me well. I have here an isolation coat, which what an isolation coat is if you ever perceive that somewhere in the future you may need to remove the varnish, you would lay an isolation coat onto your piece. Ta-da. That layer goes between the painting and the varnish. Now, with all that sort of stuff, follow the instructions, okay? I'm not going to tell you how to do it. Sometimes you've got to mix it with water, sometimes you don't. That's up to you. Read and follow the instructions. Thirdly, we have varnish. Now, varnish comes in three separate types. It comes in glossy, which is highly shiny. It comes in matte, which is the opposite of that. It is very dull. And what I'm going to be using is satin. It is basically in the middle ground. I don't like glossy personally because anytime it's hanging on the wall and I'm trying to look at the piece itself, the light reflects off of it too much. And I've got to go to kooky angles just to see the piece itself. So I personally today am going to be using satin. I am not going to be using an isolation coat today. This piece I finished many years ago. I perceive me never ever wanting to change a stroke on it. It's done, it's over with. I'm going to lay on the varnish and call it complete. Right. And the next step is you need to make sure that what you're laying this thing on is level. Believe it or not, that floor of my apartment building isn't level. It's not even close. I've got a better chance of having it level on my good old easel. So that's why I've got this level. I've measured it out. And as you can see, I've got the bubble pretty well sorted. All right, I've got my brush. I've got my painting. I've got my varnish. Next, really make sure that your piece is clean. Dust it off. I do not use paper towel, especially if you paint like me. Things can get a little bit rough. Sometimes that paper towel sticks. Dust the thing off. Make sure you're in an isolated room too. If you have animals, vacuum the room first, dust the room, let everything settle. Oftentimes I honestly wear one of those do-rag things. I was looking around today. I don't have one, but I'm just gonna take the chance and lay this varnish on anyways. Also, a very helpful tip, if you're planning on photographing this for reproductive purposes, I recommend doing it before varnishing. Now, I have successfully taken photographs afterward. It's not as big of a deal as people made it out to be. However, I might have gotten lucky, but I do know it's a lot easier to photograph prior to the shine going on there. And now that I think about it, perhaps it's because I use the satin gloss. Maybe the people run into more problems when they're using the highly reflective and in my opinion, highly annoying glossy varnish. All right, that's just my opinion. Let's get to our next step. One last thing, make sure your painting is dry. I paint with acrylic paints. They dry very quickly. If you are painting with oil, they recommend that you wait a full year before you lay on that varnish. So drag a hand over it, drag a wet rag over it, I don't know. Just make sure it's dry. You don't want the varnish mixing in with some wet paint. All right, here's a method that somebody showed me a long time ago and now I'm showing you. You take the dish of the prefabricated aluminum foil. You take your aluminum foil and you rip off a sheet. Now, because I'm a little OCD and perfection oriented, or nervous, I guess, in general, I dispense of the first part. I don't want any dust on it. And you just kind of push this thing in. Basically, now I know that when I'm dumping my varnish in here, it is going to be in a clean environment. All right, next, take your varnish. Follow the instructions if you need to. If you're using a polymer varnish, you might need to mix it with water. This Liquitex Satin, I don't need to. Dump it in. This painting is 30 inches by 40 inches, so I know I'm going to be using at least this much varnish and probably more. All right, so my varnish is ready to go. I have my foam brush. Now I bought this foam brush out of a bin. It was not covered, it was not protected. If you'll notice, the other three brushes that I bought at the same thing, like a dollar store, I think, or Home Depot, I can't remember now. They're all protected in a plastic bag. This was protected in a plastic bag. When I got all these home, I washed them thoroughly underneath tap water. That's because these things collect dust. When you're laying all this stuff on, you don't want to be laying dust on with your varnish, okay? So this has been cleaned. Now, my next process is I'm going to be dipping this brush in. You only dip it in a little ways, maybe a third of an angle. I mean, a third of it, no, not even that much, maybe a quarter, this deep at the most. Right here, see that? Right there at the very most. I'm going to dip the varnish in and I'm going to work from one corner to the other. I'm going to use slow, well, not that slow because varnish dries quickly, but I'm just going to use a repetitive motion. So I guess let's get to it. Here we go. Flat, dust-free, varnish. I'm working from one corner to the other. This is how I do it. See that? Just about a quarter in there. I use as wide of a brush as I can find. Let the excess fall. You don't need a lot. You don't want to lay it on thick. So it's got to be laid on thin. Just drag it. Now, the way I have my lighting set up, I can kind of see how this is being laid on. What I mean by that is I'm seeing where the varnish is hitting and where it's not. Now, is that important? It kind of is and it kind of isn't. With varnish, you're not going to do this all in one go. This is just the first. Of probably 3 layers I'm going to be laying on this thing. So, Don't work the varnish too much. If you work it too much, it's gonna bubble up. Those bubbles will stay and they'll be with your piece forever, especially if you didn't put the isolation coat down like me. If you're working on a surface that's important to you, let's say, I don't know, your bedspread or kitchen table or something like that, I highly recommend you placing something underneath it, because as we all know, if we're doing a painting, that paint could end up in different places. It can drip off the side. Okay. Now I can see right here I just missed a spot. I'm not going to worry about that. I will hit it tomorrow because I'm going to be letting this thing dry overnight. I am done working for the day. When I'm done with this, I am closing the door. I'm not letting anybody or anything in here. And I'm letting this dry in peace. I'm going to actually clean this brush off. I know a lot of people throw them away. I don't see the reason for that. Oh yeah, now I missed a big spot here. I'm not going back in again. Leave it be. If you see streaks, don't worry about it. They will disappear with time. All right, now I've just cleaned off my brush. I am actually moving gently through my room. Normally I just close the door. Oh, you can see that shine on their seat. Oh, and you see that spot that I missed? That's gonna be okay though. We're gonna hit that tomorrow after it dries. You know, the one thing I didn't cover is why. Why should you varnish? Oh, look at that big streak I missed. That's okay. Well, the reason you should varnish, and it took me years to learn this because I painted with acrylic. I just thought, man, who needs to varnish? Acrylic is dried plastic. What could harm it? Well, what could harm it is UV rays. The painting itself can yellow. And I don't know, they just get damaged somehow over time. So I started varnishing. I'm glad I did. Some people think it actually makes the paintings look better. I don't know about that exactly. I've looked at my paintings for so long that I think they look very similar, but I don't know. It's a good thing to do. All right, it is morning time, day 2, I guess. It doesn't matter. It's about 12 hours after I have laid on my first layer of varnish. I want to show you guys how it dried and then how I'm going to lay on the second coat. After this, I'll decide if I want to put on a third coat. I typically do, but let me show you what it looks like now that it has dried. All right, so see these streaks right here? See these streaks? They're all going this way. Big old spot right there. Missed him. Missed that streak over there. None of that matters because we went from here to here yesterday. Bloop, bloop. Now we're gonna go this way. And then if I lay on a third, I'll again take it this way. Same thing as yesterday. I wiped my brush off. I squished it between a dish towel, not a paper towel. I've got my new aluminum foil in there. Oh, there's another streak. Let's go ahead and take care of this.